Good morning. February, so glad that you could all be here. Gonna give it just one more second as more folks are jumping in. All right. Go ahead and get started today. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Bree Shalito. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Impact here at Ent Credit Union. And one of my favorite things to do is talk about money. Primarily, our key takeaways will be setting joint goals. Of course, we have to know each other's goals and values, so we'll talk more about that. Finding a plan that works for your relationship. Every relationship is different, so we've got a couple different strategies that you can certainly pull from or create your own, and then navigating those financial challenges. So let's jump in here. A great place to start for any person and somebody especially looking to talk with somebody else about money is talking about your beliefs with money. Knowing that a lot of those stem from childhood when you likely did not know the other person, though you may have, just really kind of helps set the stage for how someone spends their money and knowing how another person might want you to spend money or vice versa. Certainly they're past their generation. So as we talked about money with our parents, or maybe we didn't ever talk about money with our parents or guardians, our grandparents, it's also sometimes how the feelings were around money, which is why it's an unconscious thing. We don't really understand exactly why we feel a certain way, but if we think about it, how money felt, what do you think about when you think about money? And what did that look like for the people that you lived with and the people that came before them? Certainly, as we're talking about folks like grandparents and great-grandparents, some lived through some pretty difficult times, and money was a difficult topic. And if they lived through times like the Great Depression or times when food or money was scarce, that can absolutely have an effect on their children and then the children beyond. So certainly they're past their generations, but understanding where someone comes from and what their family was like with money sometimes helps to avoid a lot of arguments around money. So as we're talking about couples, that can be a really big one. We do sometimes tell ourselves partial truths about money and where that stems from in ourselves. We may think that we're just frugal or other things, or we may just say that splurging is a great time, you only live once. There's lots of different money mentalities, but understanding where that person is coming from really can lead to that responsibility for those financial outcomes, especially when we talk about how we're going to think about those things together. So it really comes down to starting with your goals and your values. What are your goals? What are the things that you value? Where can you find some alignment if you're going to be working with another person? It's okay if there's not much alignment, but sometimes understanding where the other person is coming from and why they spend those dollars a certain way can, again, definitely help to avoid arguments. What are the things that you'd like to accomplish independently? What are the things that you'd like to accomplish together? Typically, those things are going to take money. So understanding what that looks like and kind of allocating certain amounts of funds to certain goals or aspirations can be a great place to start. Truly digging into the values, understanding what someone values at their core is great. Understanding maybe that's family, maybe that's friends, maybe that's community. What are the things that they value? That way, when they're spending money on them, it gets a little bit more understanding between the two of you as to what that really means to them versus just like, hey, I need you to not spend in that way, or we need to talk about it, especially if we're going to be kind of blending some finances, because we'll be talking about that and those different strategies. But starting with goals and values is a perfect place. How do you do that? Certainly consider your own goals, your goals together, and then talk about what do those look like. SMART goals is a perfect place to start with those because a SMART goal means it's specific, it's measurable, accurate, relevant, and there's a time boundness to it. So let's say that one individual within a coupling or in a relationship would like to go back to school. Or they're in school, something like that, knowing that there's going to be a time limit to that, maybe that certain amount of time, if two people are working or one person's working or multiple people in the relationship are working, that's really important just to understand, especially if it's a time where it's going to be a little tough, that there is kind of a light at the end of that tunnel. That's huge. What do you prioritize? So of course, we've all got values, we've got goals, but which of those come first? Which of those are going to make the most sense here and now? And which are we going to put as a priority? And if there's not much alignment between our goals and our values, which of those do we think as an actual relationship we can move forward and look at as well? The more we can automate, the better. If we can kind of set up some of those goals, if we know there's certain things we're going to be saving for, certain things we're going to be spending, already knowing those things are coming out or going to maybe a different savings account can be perfect for that. And of course, just with like your own finances, continually reviewing those, talking about that, because those things change. If you think about who you were as an individual 10, 15, 20 years ago, have your values changed? Have things that you prioritize changed? Absolutely. So why would it be any different for when people are kind of blending some money together? So there's several different approaches. We're only going to talk about a few of those today, but as I said, you can certainly lean into some of these, or you can kind of create your own as a combination of them. Of course, there's some that are tried and true and stand the test of time, and there are some that are brand new to a lot of people. So lots of different approaches, and same thing with personal finance. Everyone here today is going to approach this differently. Every relationship is different. It doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. Perhaps it's roommates or a family member or somebody that you live with. Those are things that have to come into play as well. And these approaches can work in different ways. So the one that most folks know about, and this is a full blend of everything together, is the what's mine is yours approach. In this approach, it's exactly that. Everything is combining entirely and together. This is useful sometimes when a committed relationship, or sometimes when there's only one income. Back to our goals and our values, if only one person is working because the other is contributing in some other way, maybe that's with kiddos, maybe that's with a school, maybe that's anything at all that fits for your relationship, this can be a good way, but this is a full combination. This is only one way. So the other ones I'm going to talk about are not combining, whether that means actually keeping things completely separate or a blend, but this one is a complete combination of finances altogether and entirely. The second is equal amount. So this one can be really good, especially if you're wishing to keep things really separate. Early on in a relationship, this can be great, where we're kind of contributing equally. Maybe you're putting that into a joint account. Maybe you're not. In the beginning of my relationship, and even sometimes now, I've been married since 2016, but we've been in a relationship for well over a decade. And in the beginning, especially, I would write down the information, I would share those bills, but we split everything equally. It was really just here's the amount that's owed, here are the bills that make those, and it was an equal amount contributing 50-50. So keeping finances separate, it could be a joint account, or it could be completely separate accounts where you're just actually writing a check, making a transfer, giving somebody cash, whatever works for you. This is sometimes for often relationships where they have equal income, equal expenses. That works really well. There's another where it's percentage. And see, this one allows you to still keep things separate, could still be the same thing where you have a joint account, or keep things completely separate where it's just that same thing, giving a check, a transfer of some sort. But this is actually more useful when they have different incomes. So maybe one person makes more than the other, or something within the relationship. Can also be the case if there's in a relationship where somebody spends more. So if there's more bills coming out, let's say that one person has a car payment and the other doesn't. And each of these, it doesn't mean that you have to actually sit down and combine absolutely everything. It could still be keeping some things separate, but maybe the place that we share, or these things that we do together. It could be activities. That's completely up to you and your relationship. So whatever seems to work, if there's certain ones that you want to combine, talking about the expenses, we'll get into that here in just a moment, but just determining what of that is going to come together and how we're going to split it up. So percentage, I mean, that could be as much as 90-10, could be 60-40, could be 30-70, whatever works for you, whatever percentage that may be. A lot of times when couples and relationships decide to use this percentage, they sit down and they look at those and they see exactly what the incomes are and take a percentage of that, if that's what feels fair. So it's really just looking at whatever works for your relationship. The next is I got you next time. This can be great, especially early on. If you're not sure that there's going to be much commitment, this is like first, second date, but could continue on for decades if you so choose. I got you next time is that taking turns of taking different expenses. Sometimes this can come down to just dinners, breakfast, whatever it may be, activities, but it can also even come down to bills. Maybe one person takes a utility bill, or if one person is paying rent or a mortgage payment, maybe the other is covering things like utilities, internet, cell phones. Those are all things that just make sense for different relationships. So looking at yours, this is definitely useful when you do not wish to combine finances whatsoever. You want to maintain completely separate accounts, maintain completely different logins, all the things. This can be a great way to kind of split those back and forth. And as I said, this may even be a part of those combinations. Early on in my relationship, I'll share as well, a lot of things were split, things like the rent, the utilities, those were split equally, but dinners and activities, those were very much I got you next time. We went back and forth. Now we've evolved after many years. We do have a joint credit card that we share. So those expenses like activities, restaurants, those sorts of things go on that credit card. And then just like our bills that we split equally at the end of the month, I go through that credit card statement because there's a few things. It's a card that we use for online shopping as well. So take out the individual expenses and then it's an equal split for everything at that point. So lots of different ways in different relationships. And it doesn't have to be the way that you saw other people share money. You can certainly talk with friends and family and see how they manage it and see how that goes for them. But your relationship is different than those relationships. And so want to make sure that your money strategies are different as well. Money dates. This is huge in any relationship, just the fact about talking about it, not sweeping it under the rug, having a conversation, getting under that surface level of the values, the goals, the things that you have as a relationship. So money dates are kind of a fun way to do that. So kind of using some of those strategies to talk about, here is what we're talking about, finances. It's not my finances versus your finances, our finances, whatever the folks are comfortable with, but it's us versus the problem, not me versus you. So that's really good. A great way to start out a money date is by making it fun. Maybe sharing a money date over your favorite dinner or over a picnic, not making it just something stressful. Kind of setting the stage for a good conversation and a productive conversation is huge. Regular check-ins. How often are you going to reevaluate? Is it going to be every single month? Is it going to be bi-weekly when we're paid? What makes everyone comfortable? What is a good circumstance? How is that going to be most beneficial for us? Certainly to avoid arguments, but just to make everyone comfortable in the situation. Celebrate those wins, especially as you meet goals together. If you're saving up for something special or saving up for something, or maybe working to pay off some debt together, making sure to celebrate the best ways that you can find, especially free ways, if at all possible, to celebrate those wins when we're talking about money. And it's great in a relationship when you can hold each other accountable. And the best way you can do that is by knowing what each other values, knowing what your goals are. That way, you know, hey, I know that you value community, so I can see why you made a donation, but that somewhat goes against our goal of priority of maybe paying down some debt. Sometimes having the conversation in that way, I know you're a good person, I know that you value the community, but these are the priorities that we agreed on, can make for a much better conversation than an argument. Money is complicated. Humans are complicated. You don't have to do it alone either. So know that if you're interested in working with somebody, we do have free financial coaching. It's open to both members and non-members. You don't have to be a member of ENT to utilize our financial coaching services. And this is great for couples. Or relationships of any kind. So if you're working through something, looking to prioritize, especially if you're having difficulty finding alignment with goals, aspirations, values, if you value very different things, then that can be sometimes difficult. So sitting down with a financial coach to find a little bit of common ground is great. Financial coaches can help with budgeting, talking about not only just creating that budget, but staying accountable to that budget. Especially if you're having difficulty finding room in the budget, they definitely can help kind of configure some cash flows and work through those things, which is great for any relationship. Credit, that's a big one. We've got some free tools on ent.com/yourcredit where you can actually pull those different reports if that's something you wish to discuss on a money date to see where different folks are on credit. It's great to build those together and continue working towards those common goals. And also savings, definitely saving towards things for you together, for you as independent people. What are your goals? Do you want to go on a nice vacation? Are you saving up for a home down payment? Perhaps saving up for a car? Lots of great things. And certainly debt repayment. Debt repayment, there's tons of different strategies that you can try. Very much different methodologies behind debt repayment, but ways that you can work through that not only as an individual but as a couple. So lots of different information there. I am going to take a quick look. I know we're moving through this pretty quickly here, but I want to see if any questions have come through. If at any time you have a question, we're here near the end, so you're welcome to put something in that Q&A, and I'm happy to discuss that here. I don't see any questions in there yet, but I will keep that up. Let me go back, because one of the main things that often comes up is with a few of these strategies. I know we got into each of them, but I want to have those up in case there's any specific questions about those. I'll wait just a few moments, but if you don't have any questions, give you a little bit of time back in your day. I very much appreciate everyone joining and going through this journey. It can definitely get complicated as you're working out your money goals and responsibilities with another person, but doesn't have to be frustrating. There's a couple different approaches that will hopefully help with that, and our financial coaches are absolutely here to help. I'm going to go ahead and go to that final screen just so that you have that. I'll leave you all with that in case anyone's interested in booking. It's completely free, so they're happy to speak with you. We've got them at many of our service centers. We also have virtual options to meet with a financial coach, so would love to chat with you. But otherwise, if there's no questions, if there's questions that come up later, certainly feel free to send those on to financialeducation@ent.com. We're happy to answer any of those. Lots of different resources on our website, so certainly feel free to utilize those as well. And just reach out if there's any questions, concerns, or if there's something that you just need some assistance with. Thank you so much all for your time. Have a great day, everyone.